I'd neglected to read the other three members of our city council, and I think I saw Michael Lilliquist here earlier. Is Michael still here? He had to go. Okay, good, good. I've never known of a politician not to rush to stage when he had a chance, so I didn't totally blow it with Michael. But let me read Stan Snap, Michael Lilliquist, and Jack Weiss. Michael had to leave. Stan and Jack couldn't be here. They all voted unanimously with the city council. I want to recognize them also. For our next speaker, the torch has been passed from leaders for many generations, and I want to invite up the current torch holder for the leader of the citizens movement to protect Chuckanut Ridge, talk about diligence and persistence. Where are you, Frank? Is he back? There he is. He's right here. Frank James. Let's hear it for Frank James. Woo!
There's a lot of thank yous, and people are going to do a much more systematic job than me. But what I want to talk about was really about community, about leadership, and about friendships. We need to thank Dan Pike, our mayor. We need to thank other people. But there are a lot of other people that make things happen, and you don't always know them. We live in a place where the mountains meet the shore. That's why I live here. It's the most beautiful place in the world. You can be in snow-peaked mountains, and you can be out in the San Juans on the same day. There just aren't. I've traveled the entire planet. I leave after tomorrow for East Timor. Last year I was in Taiwan, India, China. This is the most beautiful place there is. I checked them out. But more than place, it's people that matter. It's really the people that love the land. It's those that are not only the present people, but the future people. My granddaughter's back there, and my son is right here. My granddaughter's 2 months old, and she's who's going to East Timor to live with her mom. And my son, Tai Ming, is only 7, and he's here to help me out tonight. You want to hold this for me like I told you? Thank you. You got it? Very good. There are people from the very beginning that were inspirational, and these aren't people we talk about much, but Ken Hertz. Ken had a vision for what this county could be, not just this community, and he had a vision that he carried out, that he acted on. Most of the parks in our county are because of Ken's vision. It wasn't just Ken. There were other people. Bill Dietrich was a man that I knew as a young man, and Bill's passed. But he was a leader and a visionary that kept all of us moving forward. He's somebody who inspired me when I was 18 years old. He's one of the reasons I'm here. There were other people there. Ann Eisinger. Is Ann here tonight? Ann is a person, she's a technical expert on wetlands and other things. And she went and she inventoried the entire city of Bellingham of where all the special places were that we should preserve. And Chuckanut Ridge was one of them. And she eloquently, accurately, and passionately described each of those places. And it gave us the ammunition to get started, to say this is a special place. It's not just my feeling. A competent technical professional has assessed it and really knows that it's the right place. We need to help if we're going to help again. Yeah. There are a lot of other people. There are cultural leaders. Clyde Ford, I don't think, is here either tonight. Clyde, are you out there? Clyde, most of you know Clyde as the black man in town. There are a couple. He's also an amazing author. He's written a number of books, and he took this issue and he put it into a major novel. And I'm glad that things have changed. Maybe we should go back and he didn't have to write a new book. But Chuckanut Ridge figured prominently into his book, Precious Cargo. And the bank that participated then was not a very nice bank, and the developer was even worse. If you haven't read it, it's worth a read. He and Dana and Swilcanum did a reading and music for that really made it poignantly clear that the community didn't want this to happen. There are other people. Dana and I get mentioned. We were the founders, really, responsible development, kind of the third wave in this effort. Christina McHugh, though, who's sitting over there nursing her baby, Christina was the other co-founder. And the world is held, the skies and the heavens are held up by women. And nursing mothers. Another thing you need to make change is you need money. And there were a lot of people that donated. One of the people is Keith D'Angelo. Keith is back there because I saw him. At one point, we wanted to bring in a technical expert that understood the financial part of how these things work. And we wanted to bring Eben Fodor. And Eben Fodor, we had to come up with $4,000 on short order. And he did a study of how this property and all properties get developed and what the costs are to the community. And when we did that, what we found out was we would pay $12 million in additional taxes to provide the infrastructure for this development. When Eben came to town, he filled up the entire county council chambers with people flowing out into the street. And as much as Eben gets a lot of credit for that, it's people like Keith D'Angelo that was able to write the check and make it happen. Because without people willing and able to do that, the rest of us can't do our part of the job. But the financial story I really want to share with you is that the thing that made me stay in this, because I got a bunch of emails and a bunch of calls that said, "You persevered, buddy. Good work." But the time that I got hooked, the Ericksons back there, so they're standing in the first row in the back there. Their daughter came up to me, and she gave me a $1,000 check. Not from her parents. It was her money to go to college. She'd earned that money. I wanted to give it back. But when I took it, I knew that I had to finish. And she lived across the street from this, and she spent time there, and she loved this place, like a lot of people do. But it's people like that, Jen, you wouldn't even hear her name or know about her, but I want you to know about her. The irony, the really good humor about it was that the check was drawn on Horizon Bank, and it was a $1,000 cashier check. And because it was a $1,000 cashier check, it was signed by the president of the bank. We don't have the check, but I have a picture of it. You also need other kinds of people on the team. Dave Brickland couldn't make it, but Dave Brickland is a Harvard-trained lawyer. And we got serious about this. We began to raise money and knew that we were going to be toe-to-toe with serious-minded people. I went to Dave and I said, "Dave, we need your help." And he said, "Okay." And I said, "How much are you going to charge us?" And he said, "I'll give you my Robin Hood rate." Which he did. But I'll tell you, there's nothing more reassuring than being able to turn to a Harvard-trained lawyer that specializes in land and say, "What's the deal? What are the facts? What's inconvertible?" The old guy's already been mentioned. When Bob and his lovely wife started a long time ago, she's passed now, and she means something to everybody in this room. She was the person behind Bob that helped him do those things, and I watched him make that transition to life without her. When I said this is about community, that's what it means. It's community, it's friendship, it's going through those hard times. I mean, Bob is a Republican precinct, and I'm a knee-jerk liberal, and I'd do anything for that man. And I know that he would support me. Those are the kinds of friendships that matter over time. Some of the other leaders that don't always get mentioned, responsible development, some people paint as a South Side rich guy thing. Our board has had people on it from Point Roberts from the beginning. John Lessau has been on our board from the very beginning, from Point Roberts. You have to go to Canada to get there. Linnea Fleury from Ferndale has been on our board from the very beginning. And Wendy Setter, the queen of the saddle between King and Queen Mountain, she's out there now too. She was on our board too. You know, out-of-towners. She's right back there. It's a partnership between everybody. When there's value, everybody recognizes it. This isn't about our backyard. This is about our entire community. You know, there are recent people too. Nacito, did you make it? Are you here? I needed a poster made. Those posters in the back there. And I needed one done tomorrow. There's an error on it, by the way, because it was after midnight when he was putting his baby to bed with an ear infection that he got up and finished making that poster. It's a beautiful poster. It's got Jody's artwork in it. It's gorgeous. I do want to put one plug in here, and the plug is this, that we're selling them. See the poster in the back there? That's $30 for the big one, $3 for the little one, so everybody can have one. But what that money's going to go for, it's going to go for the stewardship of this land, for protecting the wetlands, for making us make that transition between the bank owning it and living in, you know, not being able to do that stewardship, and the city owning it when they're going to be more robustly doing it. But that transition, we as citizens in this community own. And so we're selling those posters, $30 for the big one, $3 for the little one. Everybody can have one. I don't want to take any home. Is going to begin the fund that's going to allow us to care for that land. There's a bunch of kids out there building bicycle trails right through the middle of one of the wetlands, a Category 1 wetland that is responsible for the salmon in 2 different streams in our city. We got to protect it. But people like Nacito Canetti, he stepped forward at the last minute and did an extraordinary job. And he deserves thanks, like a lot of other people do. There's one other person I want to mention because they don't get mentioned either, and that's John McLaughlin, the guy with the bicycle. You know, there's lots of things to be said about John, but he's a Stanford graduate. He's a brilliant biologist. He studies wonderful things. But I don't know if he owns a car, but I've never seen him in one. When he had did you have a fractured foot? He had a fractured foot, and he's bicycling with 1 foot. Well, that's commitment. That's commitment. And when you talk to John, Stanford graduates are usually smart, right? There's a reason he does it. He's setting an example for all the rest of us that can be done. We don't need these cars. They don't need to rule our lives. John's also a brilliant biologist that helped us identify what's out there and why it's worth saving. It's dramatically important. Well, I talk way more than my fair share, but I've been working more than my fair share. I want to now introduce another person. And just by way of introduction, I got to tell you that when Washington Federal came to town, I thought, another big bank, an even bigger bank, a $1 billion bank. We are in trouble. And they had a reception at the Bellwether. And there's a bunch of really rich hoity-toity people there. Everybody had a tie. But I went to that. I was invited to it. And I was first impressed they knew who I was. And secondly, that they would bother to invite me. Maybe it's because I'm a doctor. I don't know. But when I got there, 2 things happened. The very top people from the bank came over and talked to me. Now, there were a lot of rich and famous people in that room. It was filthy with rich and famous people. And they spent 15 minutes, 2 of them spent 15 minutes each with me when there were people standing right there waiting to talk to them, waiting. And I had their undivided attention to say what I needed to say as a representative of our community. That changed my heart. And it changed my brain a little bit, but it mainly changed my heart.